Well, hi everybody. Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you for joining me today. We have a repeat guest, and it's been about a year since we spoke, and it's been quite a year of transformation, change, uproar, and just shit happening for me, for him, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. My dear friend, Tom Keenan. Hi, Tom.
Hey Gail, how are you?
I am so amazing. You know, when you feel like shit for so long, feeling a little bit good feels amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Um, so let's talk about transformation. And we were talking a little bit earlier, just touching on your business is changing, your personal life is changing, you have changed. I know I have on it, not only emotionally and spiritually, but physically. Right?
Mhm.
I've gone through a crazy transformation, but this has been a year for a lot of people to go through
Yeah,
massive upheaval. So, let's talk a little bit about what has transpired. So you moved in with a beautiful woman
yeah.
and her family, and
So
you took it
much.
on. You took it on.
Yeah, yeah. So let's. I guess we should backtrack and give the listeners a little more context. So last year, right around this time, I was deep in the throes of getting out of a relationship, a marriage with a woman who I cared for, and I still care for her dearly to this day. Um, I was with her for 20 plus years together, and we were married for 14 years. Three amazing, beautiful children, and reached a point in my life where I realized that the relationship was not in alignment with who I was becoming. I was evolving rapidly, um, and we've talked about evolving and transformation and all of this from a business sense. And it all started with me. I never expected to go down this road. Okay. We go down this self-development journey path, whatever you want to call it. Oh, I want to be a better person. I want to be a better business owner, a better whatever. And years into this path, it's like, holy shit, I can't believe that the choices that I made then are no longer aligning with the person I've become today.
I have got
And
to tell you, so many marriages have a hard time when one spouse goes through that
mhm,
because your communication changes.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally,
So go
totally.
ahead. So yes,
Yeah.
so you're like, what? What happened?
Yes. And like we said it, yeah, last year, 2023 was absolutely bananas for a lot of people. A lot of my clients went through some real serious turmoil. 2023 for me on an individual level was the most difficult and challenging year of my entire life. Right. And I've had a couple of dingers in my day. And I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm old, but 44, almost 45 years on this planet, I've experienced some shit at this point, and I'm sure there's plenty more to come. But up until today, right now, the year of 2023 was the most challenging and difficult for me. And it was coming to the realization that the life that I had built, the businesses, the marriage, the relationships with several people, friends, family, and everything in between was all built on this old version of me. And I uncovered and discovered cracks in the foundation of Tom. And I went to work to fix those. And in doing so, we often realize like, oh, that no longer aligns with this new version of me that's coming out. Right. And started having some really difficult, deep conversations, a lot of them with myself at first. Right. A lot of them with people that I considered advisors, mentors, coaches, whatever term you want to use there from me to help me through some situations in life that they had experience with that I had yet to experience. And coming out of this thing, I realized, hey, the marriage isn't the right thing for me. Right inside, I'm truly unhappy, even though everything on the outward world appears perfect. Right,
Oh,
this good
been
old social
there.
media highlight reel. Yeah, I got the cars, I've got the house, I've got the wife, I've got the kids, I've got the dog, I've got it all. I've got this American dream that looks amazing, and yet
And I
there's
don't
this
want to play
void
this game
inside of me.
anymore. I don't
No,
want, right? Yep. Yep.
no, no. And in taking the steps to start to dismantle the relationship, the marriage, it took I don't want to say all of my focus, but damn near all of my focus to work on the resolution of separating a marriage of 20 years, 14 years plus where we're together. Separating that, knowing that there's children involved, being a child of divorced parents, and pulling lessons from that. Even I was 4 years old, my parents got divorced, pulling lessons from that, saying, I don't ever want to do that to my kids. And not that either of my parents directly intended to do anything wrong, just pain points that I had experienced as a child growing up through a divorced household. Putting all this together and trying to make this transition as smooth as possible to leave the least amount of wake behind as possible. And as screwed up as it may sound, doing it with good intention. Like, yeah, I'm throwing the towel in on a marriage, but I'm doing this with the purest and best intention behind it, even though most people don't see it that way.
I totally get that. I totally
Yeah.
get that. Um, for for me, and I've got two divorces, and I would say the second one, we were together 23 years, married almost 20. And I was coming home from work and crying, not wanting to go in the house. And
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was going on. And I ended up going to a psychiatrist because
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I'm messed up. And here's what she said. There's a point in our lives where we stop and we look back at what we have been doing, and then we look forward and decide, do I want to continue? And your answer was no.
Yeah.
And so I was mourning the death of the marriage. That's what the tears was all about, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, how do you leave someone that I still loved but
Mm-hmm.
couldn't live with anymore? And, I know that you care about your ex and you deeply care about
Mm-hmm.
your children, but that doesn't mean
Sure.
there's a foundation to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my biggest things was this, because oftentimes the old school mentality is, you've got to stay together for the kids. And I think that's complete and utter bullshit. Children, in my opinion, are much more observant and pick up on things more so than even some of the brightest adults that I've ever met or interacted with. So how am I going to show up in this relationship, this household, this marriage, this family unit where I'm disconnected when I'm there? I know that for a fact. Okay. I'm disconnected when I'm there. What is that subconsciously telling my children? That it's okay to show up as a disassociated father, parent, husband, partner, whatever you want to call it? Right. And now I'm going on and living, and these kids are going to be in the house with me until they're 18, 19, 20, in my case 20 years old, because I left the house late. Right. So all of these years they're going to be in this home, and it's only going to get progressively worse from this point moving forward. So no, I'm actually not going to do it for the kids, because even though we say, oh, stay in the marriage, do it for the kids, you're not doing it for the kids. In my opinion, you're doing more harm than good. And having those realizations and then taking the steps needed to get out of the relationship, it was hard, really hard. And this, so much focus had to go into the personal side of the house that I had no choice but to take my eye off the business ball. And like, business is still there. We're still making money. It's still a thing, but it's nowhere near as profitable as it was, let's call it 18 months ago.
Right.
But I also understand that it's kind of like the four seasons, right? We have spring, summer, fall, winter,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is a death process that must happen in order for the regrowth and the rebirth of things to go up from here.
Absolutely. On every level, personal
Yeah.
as well as, it's a universal law. The universal law of gestation has to do with that, with things being a season, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the season of your marriage, and this is why until death do us part, is also a lie, unless you consider the love dying,
Yeah.
right? And I wouldn't even say the love dying. I don't think the love died in your case. I think your
No.
values shifted, your needs shifted.
Absolutely, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I uncovered through this whole process, and like you've heard me talk about it before, right? Like we do events and we've spoken on stages together and at events and whatnot. Cool. But I talk often about my physical transformation that I've had over the last 7 or 8 years of my life, and I guess it was 4.5 years ago. I had the gumption to go ahead and try this crazy thing called 75 hard. So I went up doing it, and the biggest thing that scared me to death on that first round was giving up alcohol for 75 days. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. And yet, you go into it and it wound up being the easiest part of the 75 days for me. But that was my first go as a grown adult, right? And this is something I'm not proud of. I'm just stating the facts here. I spent 20 or 20 plus years of my adulthood drinking every day. And it wasn't like I was going out and getting shit faced at the bar, but I was consuming alcohol on a daily basis. You and I both know that alcohol disconnects us from spirit and
Yeah,
lots of other things.
yes, though we sometimes think otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here I am legitimately poisoning my body on a daily basis. And it's my way of disconnecting from the reality of the world that is within my
Mm-hmm.
own home.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a house full of love. This is a house full of laughter. This is a house full of caring, right? So people are looking at me like, you have this perfect relationship. You don't fight. You don't argue. You don't. And yet I'm the one who's pulling the plug and burning this thing to the ground. And it became complacent. The whole environment became complacent. I had these realizations that alcohol is doing more harm than good. Like you, once I catch wind of something or something interests me, I'm diving deep into that path or that trench to learn more and more about it. Read, listen, apply, and then all of a sudden, wow, we have changes.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I guess March of this past, so right now it's 2024 recording this. March of 2024 marked 1 year that I've been completely alcohol free. And a lot of people, I think, would assume that life overall is going to get so much better and grander and have all this clarity because you're alcohol free. And yeah, I think that's on the opposite side of this. But for me, the further I got into no alcohol consumption, the more the life fell apart. The old life had to fall apart. Right. And it's almost counterintuitive. It's like we think, okay, well, I did the right thing. I quit drinking. I quit whatever it is that your vice is or your addiction is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, magically, it's going to get better tomorrow. Well, no, dummy. You spent 20 years building up the bullshit that led to where you're at right now. You can't expect this to get better instantaneously because the universe doesn't work that way.
It doesn't, and there's some codependency that was going on at the same time, and you stopped drinking. It had to have had an impact on her, whether she
Definitely.
realizes it or not,
It's one of
because
the ways we connected.
right, it's how you connected, and now that's
Mhm.
changed. Um, yeah, so let me share with you. I've been sharing this a lot, a perspective on change and personal development in
Mhm.
particular. Um, and it's like this. We're on a diving board. We're on level 3,
Mhm.
and the change is in the water, and you have to dive into the water. This is your first time diving into the water. So you say, I need the change. You go into the water, you do a belly flop, you sink to the bottom, and you can't find your way up. You panic, you swallow a lot of water, and then finally you come to the top. and you're catching your breath and you crawl out of that pool and you have an aha moment of, I survived that. And now I'm changed. And look at, I can now go to the fourth level. So you
Mm-hmm.
climb up to the fourth level and see the world differently. But now
Mm-hmm.
you have to dive in again, and you're gonna go deeper because you're diving now
Mm-hmm.
from a different level, right?
Yeah.
But what happens over time? And so it's iteration. It's when you take the leap like you have into the messy water, you get good at it. You don't
Yeah.
do belly flops anymore. You don't fight, you float right back to the top. And so the
Mm-hmm.
change accelerates. And so what happens is, I know the program that you were in, and you start with a little bit of change, but as you got good at it, let's say, the practice, it happens faster and faster and faster and faster, right?
Yeah.
Until you're spinning and she's still on level 3 of the diving board,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Eh,
Yes. It's here's something else that I've realized with this, and this goes a lot along with what you just said. I used to give myself, and I've coached clients on this time and time again, and I still do because I think it still applies to people who are not necessarily as far advanced into the self-development journey as we are. You have a 3-day rule to say, "Oh, woe is me. Oh, poor me. I'm the little bitch. I'm the victim." You got 3 days to play that card when some shit goes sideways in your life. Okay,
I give
because I
permission for
mean,
a pity party. Yep.
yeah, you got the pity party. So I give the permission, and I gave myself permission for the longest time was 3 days. You got 3 days to be a little bitch and sit on the couch and do nothing and say, "Ooh, poor me," before you get your ass up and take action. Otherwise, you got a big problem. So cool. I learned that lesson, implemented it years ago, and now here we are. And I'm at the point where I won't even give myself 3 hours. Right. And that's your efficiency. Your dive has gotten better. You're going deeper and you're popping right back up to the surface. Okay, cool. I
Right.
learned a
And you're
lesson.
doing the
I got
pencil
my shit.
dive, right?
Yeah.
Right. No belly flops. Pencil right in. You know,
Yeah.
um, Sometimes when I am triggered, which I very rarely get triggered now, um, but I process in a nanosecond because
Yes.
I'm so accustomed to what just happened. What's my role in it? How do I own it? How do I make things better? Great. Now go do it. Bam. But because I've done that process so much, it just happens. And by the time I catch my breath and realize I've been triggered, I've already gone through the process.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. So when you're with someone
Mm-hmm.
who, okay, so Tom, you've gone through, oh, this isn't cool. Okay, so I know this is, my responsibility. I own this, I own that. Okay, I can take care of me. The other party is still in the victim mode.
Yeah.
This is why there's lack of communication,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Yeah.
so you unraveled the marriage, and I think you did a very gentle job. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
people don't get hurt. People are going to get hurt.
Of course.
Um, and then you've moved on. So let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that process for you.
Is one of those things, never in a million years expected it to go the way it did or
Mhm.
who it was with,
I
and
wasn't surprised. Jeez.
looking back at it, no. Um, but it's just funny the way that the world opens up and connects things for you,
Right.
and the woman I'm in a relationship with now, her dearly. Her name's Catherine. She's a sweetheart. She's my girl. We've known each other for years. She edited my first book. She actually edited both the books I worked on because I have a second book that I co-authored. She did that as well. And I met her very similar to our friend Chris. I met her years ago, and one of the first things she said to me was like, "Hey, I don't know if you realize this, but you and I are gonna be pretty good friends after this." And we were really good friends for years. It's funny. I just had social media, Facebook. It gives us, these memories occasionally when we log in and look at that, the book of socials. And maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, a memory popped up. I was here working at an organization, and we flew to Salt Lake City to work an event for a day. And we flew out there, and Catherine was working that event as well that day. And it was the first time that I met her in person. And this was 3 years ago. And I had known her for years at that point. You know, we had known each other. She worked on multiple projects for me. She'd done a ton of editing, not just in my books, but other stuff too, blog posts and other articles and stuff that I had written over the years. I would, you know, kind of hire her on a freelance basis to come in and do some of these editing projects for me. And here we are, you know, 3 years ago, I finally meet her in person. We gave each other this big giant hug. She introduced me to some people, and we go on about our day, and we split. I went back to Texas that day, and obviously she used to live in Utah, so she stayed there. And like that was it. And then fast forward another year and a half, things start going sideways with my career, because at the time I was let go from a position I was in. My ex-wife was dealing with her battle with breast cancer at the same time, right? So there's all this complete and utter chaos and stress that's going on in my life. And you know, it's not random now, knowing what I know, and not in a bad way. But Catherine would reach out to me at the least opportune times sometimes. And you know, you want to get wonky and spiritual about it because we have a connection, and it's been there for a really long time.
Yeah.
She reached out to me. So I'll give you backtrack here. Fast forward to February, backtrack to February 2022. I get off a plane in Las Vegas, and I'm heading to a speaking engagement. I'm going to be in town for a couple of days. I get off the plane, and now my ex-wife had already gone in and had some testing done, because they found some lumps in her left breast. And I get off the plane. She sent, and you know, you get off the plane. I didn't have Wi-Fi in the plane that day. I get off the plane, and my phone just going buzzing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm catching up, and there's a text message from my ex, and it's like, "Hey, give me a call. We need to talk." I knew instantaneously what it was. I just knew. I knew deep down inside. I didn't even have to have the conversation. I knew what she was going to tell me. Okay. Right. Kind of connect the dots. She never would speak to me normally with that kind of language, right? So make the phone call, and I called her when I got when I got into the hotel room at this resort that we're staying at, and she tells me, she goes, "Hey, I was just diagnosed with breast cancer. These are the details." And she was a mess. She was a wreck on the phone. I wanted to go turn around and get right back on the plane and be with her, and she told me flat out, she's like, "Nope." She goes, "Don't do that." She goes, "You're there. You made a commitment to these people." She goes, "You coming home right now is not going to help me any bit whatsoever. Besides you coming here and giving me a hug, I'll be okay for a couple of days." "You sure?" Because I'll turn around right now. "Yep, positive. Go do your thing." So I hang up the phone call with her, and like I am a complete bag of shit at this point. I'm a mess, and thinking of worst case scenarios in my head, and you get it. You play all these scenarios out in a nanosecond in your head. And as I'm playing out these scenarios, and I'm pacing in my hotel room at this point, like I've got this energy that's just all over the place, and like I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to go downstairs and interact with anyone, because I know a lot of the people who are here, and they're going to spot, "Hey, Tom is off, dude. You're okay." Like, I'm not ready to have this conversation with anybody at this point. And I get a message just from Catherine. "Hey, I just got a ping on you. Everything okay?" I'm like, what? And I replied a very brief reply to her. And we're friends. We got a good relationship. Normally it would be a sentence I reply, and I probably hit her with like a 2-word answer kind of deal. And she kept probing me like, "Hey, you're not okay. What's going on?" And I wasn't answering her. And she started sending me more messages. "Are the kids okay?" "Well, yes. I'm not going to have this poor woman worry about my kids. Yes, my kids are okay." And the next question came in, "Is your wife okay?" I'm like, I'm not a liar. And knowing her, she already knows anyway, because she's just weird like that. So no.
That's why I love her. I replied no.
Yeah, I replied no. And she said, "Okay." And she literally sat there, and like, I didn't discuss it. I didn't divulge what had happened to her at that point in time, because I hadn't had the conversation with my ex-wife at that point to say, "Hey, like, are we keeping this between us at the moment until we
Right.
know more, or are we going out there and blabbering our mouths to the whole world? Like, I wanted to respect her wishes because she was the one who was diagnosed with cancer, not me.
Right.
So I said, no, she's not okay. I just literally just got this information. I don't know what to do with it and whatnot. But here's this woman who literally held space for me in one of the deepest, darkest moments of my life.
Right.
Um, fine, cool, carry on, move on about. And this transpires and continues to happen. And this wasn't the first time that kind of stuff had happened either with Catherine. Fast forward to July of 2022, and I had just got done having a very heated conversation with the gentleman I was working for at the time, and we decided to go our separate ways.
And you had moved.
And oh yeah, I had already moved at this point. I was living in Dallas,
Right.
and momentarily later, I get a message from Catherine. Hey, I feel like something big just happened to you, and I don't know if it's good or not. What's up? It's like, what's going on here? So when I'm having that conversation with her, fast forward, have this conversation. Hey, I just walked away / got fired, had a disagreement with this gentleman I was working for, and I just left a $500,000 a year position. I've got a wife at home who's sick with cancer, and last night I just cut her hair off for her, by the way, with our kids watching. I've got money in the bank, but I've got a hell of a mortgage and expenses here in this crazy ass fucking house I live in, trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I need to move and make money and build a business very quickly, or I'm going to be in real hot water real fast.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is this: I didn't have the relationship. That's probably not true. That was more on me. I could have called my mom and had the conversation with her, but I didn't want to. That's on me. I didn't want to burden my then sick wife at home, right, who just had a double mastectomy, who just started chemo, was on her second round of chemo. I just cut her hair off the night before. I don't want to tell her, oh, hey, yeah, by the way, I got problems too. And they're in the business and the financial sense. Like, what am I going to do? Bring that to the table when I just cut this woman's hair off from her head?
Right.
Like, no, I didn't feel that was right. Like, she had enough on her plate at that point in time to deal with. I'm not going to bring another bag of shit and pile it on for her. So, I wind up flying out to Salt Lake City, maybe 3 weeks later. I go to speak at an event at a hotel in downtown Salt Lake City. And long story short, I was like, I messaged Catherine, hey, I know you live here or you live somewhere in this area. I'm going to be in town for this. We're doing like a speaker's dinner the night before. Why don't you come out and meet, and we'll have a conversation and whatnot. So she came out. We did dinner with a group of people, and she left and went home. The next night, my damn flight got canceled from weather or some crap that was going on. And I'm like, hey, I'm sitting in this hotel room. I got nothing going on. If I know you got 4 kids of your own and you're a busy single mom and you run your own businesses and all this other crazy stuff you got going on, but if you're available, I'd love to, get together with you again tonight. So we did. We got together as friends, and we went out that evening. And it's funny, neither of us drink at this point at all anymore. And the two of us went out and we drank like fish.
Catherine doesn't drink.
No.
I know.
So it actually worked at that time for both of us. What it wound up doing was it opened us up enough where we could have a very real conversation with each other. I learned some shit about her and some of the stuff that she's been through and dealt with in her life, and vice versa. I shared my pain points and the stuff and the struggles that I was dealing with that were very real at that point in time. I just and now by the time I'm in Salt Lake City at this point, my former employer had filed a federal lawsuit against me and my company. Right. So I've got this pending federal lawsuit over my head. I just paid an attorney for a retainer to start working on this. So that money that I had in the bank that was the safety net to pay all the bills and whatnot just went over to the attorney, because now I'm like, holy shit, if this guy if he wants to go balls to the wall, like what's stopping him from coming and taking everything I own? Like I don't have the bankroll that this dude does that I'm no longer working for. So I'm having these conversations, and here's this woman who's able to hold space for me. And I feel for the first time in my life, I've finally found someone that, as much of the shit that I bring to the table, and some of it's my own fault, by the way, and I'm admitting it, and I'm holding my own there. There's no judgment. There's no judgment.
Nope.
None whatsoever. And I almost didn't know what to do with that. Right. And it's a beautiful thing if someone's never experienced that before.
Yep.
So this thing kicks off. We have a great time. And like, again, we went out strictly as friends. I'm a married guy. I got a wife at home and three beautiful kids. Mm-hmm. Okay. Went home. She went back home. Fast forward into October, we both get invited to go speak at an event. Actually, she was speaking at an event in Arizona. I said, hey, I'm going to come out and support you just because. So did that, spent some more time together. Again, nothing's going on between us. But now our communication is increasing. We're conversing more. We're texting more. We're just interacting with each other on a more consistent basis, more frequent basis.
And with Catherine, I'm sure you're having a different level conversation.
Much different conversation. And I'm getting called on my shit left and right.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Yeah. Yeah. And the same way that she's doing it for me, I'm also doing it for her.
Right.
Right.
In a loving way.
We've got this thing in a very loving way, non-judgmental at all. And, fast forward through countless conversations, hours of conversations, and I'm starting to realize some things that are going on in my life. She's starting to realize some things that are going on in her life. And the more that we have these conversations, the more we realize that we're probably should be doing this with each other. And okay, that's a problem at this point too. She knows me. She knows that I'm married. Right. I'm in a relationship. She knows my damn wife. She's been in my house, for Christ's sakes, at this point. What does this look like? How do we bring this thing forward? Because now we've already had conversations at this point. Mm-hmm. We've sat down, myself and my ex sat down at a table and had a very frank conversation. So we're not hiding anything. This is something that's out in the open between the three of us. And we're having very adult conversations about what does this look like moving forward for all of us? Because there's no way in hell that any one of us is walking away from this table unhurt.
Right.
It's just a harsh reality. And like I said, it was extremely challenging, extremely difficult, knowing that you're about to, no matter which, in the position that I was in, no matter which direction I went, I'm going to hurt someone significantly who I care for dearly. And the choice was, choices, that may be the wrong word. The reality is this. My ex-wife had hit the plateau. Okay. We talk about the growth, the self-development, the continued learning, the continued want or drive to do better for oneself. And I'm not just talking financially. That's a small piece of the puzzle. You and I both know that. I'm talking about the person.
That is not prosperity, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So here I have one that I'm already in a relationship with, and I've got three amazing, beautiful kids, and she's leveled. She's at the cap. And am I going to drag her forward more?
You can't.
Like I can't. Like that's robbing me of my energy and resources as well.
And you cannot make someone else evolve.
No, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't. And that's a really big lesson right there, Gail. I've
Yeah.
tried countless times. I tried in my last business partnership.
Hey, been there,
Um,
done that. Yeah.
and yep, I've tried in my one and only marriage I've had at this point. I've tried in other relationships I've had where I started having some success with some business practices, and I had other friends who I've grown up with and love dearly to this day who also own businesses. Like, hey, you guys are doing this a really hard ass way.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple of things here that I could show you, implement these and watch what happens inside of your company. And like, oh no, that's not going to work in my business. Like, okay, well, I'm
Okay.
not going to continue trying to talk you into some of the things that I know for a fact that will work.
Right.
And it's one of those things where you have to go and learn the lesson multiple times. And I've this past year and a half, 2 years, I feel like I've had to relearn lessons multiple times before they go through my thick old head.
I used to say that the universe would tap me on the shoulder and I would shrug it off. And
Yeah.
the universe would give me a little shove and I would get my balance back. And the universe would yell in my ear and I would shoo it away. Not until I literally was thrown through a brick wall sometimes that I would be like, oh, you were talking to me. Right?
Yeah.
And we are here to experience, and part of that experience means we are here to evolve. The only way to evolve is to go through the mess. So, you went through some messy messes and you're still going through some mess right now. In order to get to the other side. And it's not a one and done, Tom.
Uh-uh.
That
Nope. Nope.
that's I think the fallacy or the delusion or the illusion that so many people
Mhm.
are under. Well, I'll go away for this, 7-day retreat and I'm going to come out transformed. You'll come out with breakthroughs, but you won't be transformed.
No, it's still work to do.
Yeah.
Still work to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my ex and I decided we're going to get divorced. We just started the proceedings there. We decided we're going to do an uncontested divorce here in Texas. Start the paperwork, the proceedings of that. Everything's drawn up. Cool. And there was a bunch of crap that happened in between that, we kind of just weren't being gracious and very nice to each other, unfortunately. Divorce stuff, right? We decided to sell the house. We put the house on the market. We put the house on the market right around June of last year. We wound up selling it in October of this past year, 2023. We sell the house, and the proceeds that were taken from the house, we paid off and eliminated all the debt that we had accumulated up to that point. Medical stuff and just crap, crap. Like I said, keep it up with the Joneses, right?
Right.
So got rid of all that, obviously sold the house. There's this big transition period here. She moves into a new house about 7 minutes from the old house that we were in. And my sole focus at this point is making sure that she is set up, functional, and that my 3 children have a safe, secure place to live. And in doing so, I had to put myself last, which I did quite intentionally. And my plan was, okay, cool. I'm gonna get them set up, get them in their thing, and I'll figure out where I'm gonna live once we're out of the house. Like I'll Airbnb it for a couple of weeks, whatever, no big deal.
Oh.
So that was the plan. And everyone in my circle who cares for me is scared shitless for me. They're like, dude's homeless. Technically speaking, for 6 weeks I was. But I never looked at it that way. I had travel. I was, traveling a little bit for work. I went to see my mom up in New York. I was in South Carolina to go see a client. Just a couple of things were going on in this period, right? Because now we have this perfect plan. Everything's going to go according to plan, right, Gail?
Right.
Until the universe, until the universe
Says,
comes in and says, "Ha, yeah, nice try."
no,
And
no.
So I had a colleague of mine. You actually know the gentleman too. You've interacted with him and maybe know him more so than I even think. But Brian Diamond was in town. He's a coach in the construction space. He was at Chris's first event as well. Brian hits me up and he's like, "Hey, I just got stuck in Dallas. My flight's delayed or some crap. If you're available, come meet up with me and we'll grab some lunch or something and have some conversation." Sounds like a great idea. So I get in my truck, I drive out, I pick him up from the airport, I bring him to a place, we sit down, we have lunch, and we're drinking club sodas, me and him, and we sat down and we talked for a good 3 hours. Great conversation, right? Like
Yeah.
I walked away with it like, oh, that was refreshing. Smart, intelligent, driven human who's got a good set of values. Like I learned some stuff from the conversation. He learned some stuff from the conversation. Cool. Like we went there not expecting anything from each other except a conversation. And that's what we got. So I said, you know what? After this, I'm going to drop him off at the airport and I'm going to go to the gym on the way home. Pretty normal for me. I go into the gym and I hadn't gone in that morning. Usually I go in the mornings. This is Friday. And I get the workout program. My trainer had sent it over to me because I didn't go into his facility that day. So he sends it over to me and I said, all right, cool. I'll go to the other gym that I have access to that's open late and I'll get the workout in. I head over there and the workout starts with deadlifts. Cool. Nothing out of the ordinary here. So start going over to the area, load up the bar and start going through. And the weight that he had prescribed to me that day was nothing out of the ordinary. It was nothing super heavy for what I was lifting at that point in time. And when I tell you what the weight was, you're going to be like, what are you, fucking dumb? So I get there, I get on, fourth set, I lift it. Fifth set, I put more weight on, and the program called for deadlifting 495 pounds for 3 reps. Okay. Well, I go to lift up the first rep, and the bar started slipping out of my hand a little bit. I didn't have wrist straps. I didn't have my weight belt with me that day because I wasn't at my normal gym. And I didn't have any chalk as well. So my hands were a little almost sweaty, I guess you can call
And no
it.
gloves, no nothing.
And, yeah, nothing. And I decided to, I'm just going to pull it up. And I kind of curled my arm up this way a little bit. And when I did so, I ruptured my bicep tendon in my left arm instantaneously.
Yeah.
Sounded like a big rubber band snapped. And I knew exactly what I did. It wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. Afterwards kind of sucked, but the initial incident itself wasn't terrible, which is kind of strange to say. So I put the bar down and I went over and looked at the mirror and my bicep was all the way up here. I said, oh, yep, got a problem. I went across the street. I drove myself to the hospital and checked in, and they looked at me and said, "That's great. We really can't help you. Here's a bill for $1,000." Okay, that was a waste. Go home, and this is right before I had sold and moved out of my house. So I go back to the house. My ex is there clearly because we're still living together, even though we're separated legally, and the energy between us in the house is wonky. It is like weird. And like we're intentionally staying away from each other in the house kind of deal. And this is a time where I realized that I screwed up. I'm now in the, oh, woe is me. And I'm in the woe is me a little bit more than normal because this is a pretty significant incident. I know that I have to go and have surgery. I haven't seen a doctor yet, but I've seen enough people go through this to know that like I got a pretty long road ahead of me. 2 days from then, I have to fly to South Carolina to go see a client, right? I can't bail out of this because it's not just me. There's a bunch of people coming in for this meeting. So I go there, do it. I come home, finally find a doctor, and they basically tell you with this injury, once it goes beyond the 3-week part or 3 weeks from the initial incident, your surgery is much more involved. Oftentimes the tendon shrivels so much that they have to pull in cadaver tendon to extend it. So I'm doing my best to get in there and get this done before that becomes a thing. And luckily, thankfully, I was able to find a surgeon who could get me in before that was the deal. So I tell you all this because here I am saying this is bullshit. I can't believe this happened to me. Victim, victim, victim. Right. Meanwhile, this is all getting laid out and put into place from greater powers to be than me for a reason. So Catherine and we're in a full blown relationship at this point. She's still full time living in Utah with her 4 beautiful kids. I'm here. Now we sell the house, we move out of the house, we collect the money, we pay off the debt, and I'm Airbnb-ing it now. And I'm probably a week into it. And I have the surgery date that's scheduled. And I hit her up and I was like, hey, babe, this is the date for the surgery. She's like, well, who's going to take care of you after surgery? I'm like, I'm kind of figuring I'd do it myself. And she's absolutely not, which was the right call. Okay. So she said, she goes, I don't know. Let me speak to my girl's dad, see if I can get some coverage for the kids. I'll make it happen. I'm coming and I will be with you for your surgery. Okay. So we figured she'd come out and spend 4 or 5 days with me, kind of just help care for me post-op. And I was in a somewhat of a hard, soft cast-ish thing for 10 days post-surgery. So I was working with one arm. And it would have been impossible without someone helping me. So she comes out and we wind up spending a lot of really good one-to-one time, just us. And we went and stayed in a couple different Airbnbs locally that were just on really gorgeous pieces of property in the Texas countryside here. It allowed us to deepen our relationship even more so than what it was. And it also allowed us to discover and figure out, oh shit, this is real between us. So we had known that already, but we both had this fallacy in our brains that we were going to split time. Because I'm getting 50-50 custody of at this point I have 50-50 custody of my kids. Right. So I have to be here in Texas by then. They're still in school. And my thought process is I'm going to spend a week here with my kids, and then I'm going to go back to Utah and spend a week there with her, and then back and forth.
Like, and then fly for your business and run your business. And... oh man,
yeah,
dreams.
All of that. Yeah.
No wonder the universe stepped in.
Yes. Yeah. So the universe stepped in and we spent some time together and she's like, this is crazy. And in that instant, she's like, I'm going to move here and the girls, and we're going to do it like now. I'm like, what? Because my thought process is, okay, well, I'm going to go rent a house here for a year or so, smaller house, and be me and the 3 kids. Like, I don't need anything crazy. And we start having these conversations and she's like, no, like I'm going to come. And well, if you're coming, you've got 4 kids. I've got 3. Holy shit. We need half a mansion. And I'm not saying because we want the nice houses, like we physically need the room.
Right.
So, she wound up spending, I think 13 days here in total. And in that 13-day period, she took me to surgery. She cared for me after surgery. We went in on the 10th day and had my cast removed. Then drove down to Austin and spoke at an event there. But in between all of this, we got to spend a lot of time with each other, really deep conversations, planning what are the next steps? What do we do? We looked at a ton of different properties while we were here, home-wise. And she wound up leaving and going back to Utah. And I don't know, a handful of days after that, we wound up signing the lease and whatnot and getting into the place that we have here. So by Thanksgiving of 2023, her and the girls were here and they were going to come in and spend a week here and then go back to Utah. And then we'd get over here full time soon after. And they came here in November and we haven't left since. So it went from this plan of this back and forth stuff going on to there it is. Immediate, just add water family. Yeah.
Right. And I need to touch on how, in my eyes, amazing Catherine is. Mm-hmm. She is someone who you can lay your confidence in and know that she's holding the most caring, loving space, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Right. So she's a pretty amazing woman. So kudos to you. to have been able to find a relationship with someone like that. So the point being is that we don't know how our life is going to turn out.
Mm,
All we know is that we have a vision and have to be ready to adjust that vision based on the only thing that's real, and that's this moment right now.
yeah.
Right. I did an exercise last week with a bunch of entrepreneurs who are high level entrepreneurs, much like yourself and the folks that we know. And we did a very powerful visioning exercise that I do.
Mhm.
And every single one of them is now making changes on their business completely different than what they thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
One
Mhm.
of them, I just saw a message. We're in a private group, and he said, 2 weeks ago, I would never have thought this is possible. I can't friggin' believe how my business is blowing up
Mhm.
because he did something a little different. Right. And so, what you're going through, you don't know what's going to blow up.
Mhm.
Right, because you're in the middle. You can't see it because you're in the middle, and he was in the middle of, my
Yeah.
my wife is yelling at me, we're not making enough money, we might have to move, I'm now watching the kid, blah 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 blah. Right, to holy shit, here it is.
Mhm.
Right, and it wasn't anything that he thought it was going to be. And so
Yeah.
you're going through, and your business is going through. See, everything is interconnected. You cannot personally be going through a
Mhm.
change because all of these things you're talking about, your eye was off the business, and then your eye is back
Mhm.
on the business. Your eye is off the business, and now your eye is back on the business. Right, what's
Yeah.
happening with the business because of all of the changes that's happening to Tom?
Um, Lots of changes. So I'll give you a story here. I like stories. I know you do
Yeah, I love
too.
stories.
Um, I spent 20 plus years in the car stereo industry,
Right.
and I'm still heavily involved over there. I speak at a lot of their events and whatnot. And I have a colleague who is basically a second command at a really high end aftermarket automotive facility in Nashville, Tennessee called Titan Motoring. He's like the head sales guy there. His name's Dan Bowman, and Dan is a great guy. He's been a business owner himself, so he understands small business ownership. He just is thriving under the ownership of someone else, where he can focus on a singular activity, which is sales. Sharp dude, loves to read, and we go back and forth with books all the time. Hey, here's three that I just finished up. You'll probably like these two of the three,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. So he's always sending me recommendations and whatnot. And I see him 3 or 4 times a year. A couple weeks ago, I fly down to Nashville, where he's located, and this Knowledge Fest event for the mobile electronics industry is in Nashville. So it's in his backyard. I get to see him. We go to speakers dinner one of the evenings before the event kicks off. Go outside. I'm talking to him and his awesome wife Wendy, and they come out. And he's like, "Oh," he goes, "Shit, I held into my car. I gotta get some for you. I have a gift for you." It's like, "Okay, cool." So he comes back out and he's holding this red covered book, and the book's titled is Coach Builder. Okay, well, I'm in the coaching space, so this sounds intriguing. And it's written by Donald Miller. Donald Miller is famous for Story Brand. He's got a couple of different books and stuff that he's done. Sharp guy. Donald happens to be one of Dan's clients. And every time Donald gets a new car, he comes in and sees Dan and gets a bunch of goodies and accessories added to it. So Donald knows that Dan loves to read, and he came in and he handed him a couple of copies of the latest book and said, "Here, you read some and give them out to anyone you think who gets some value from it." So I've got this copy of this book who came directly from the author himself, which I think is pretty cool. And I take it home. We go back. We fly from Nashville back to Dallas. Fast forward 2 weeks. We're going to get back on the plane and fly up to New York to go see my mom and for a couple of days. And I've got a book that's sitting on my desk, in my home office, that's 90% complete. And it's a good book. It's nice. It's about Amazon and founder Jeff Bezos. But I'm like, I'm going to get on this flight and I'm going to finish this book in an hour. And then I'm going to have no book to read with me for the rest of the trip. So, you know what? Let me just bring this Coach Builder book instead.
Right. And
something inside of me, like that little ping from Spirit is like, you need to read this one now, motherfucker. that's the ping I'm getting. So I've learned to listen. When you get the ping at this point, shut up and listen. So I grabbed the book, I put it in my backpack. We go to the airport, we hop on the plane, and I wind up reading the first quarter of this book on the flight up. And you got to understand something about me. I'm OCD beyond belief. I don't like defacing any of my books. I don't like dog-earing them. I don't like writing in the notes. I don't like highlighting them. That is not for me. I like the book pristine and perfect.
Yep.
So I'm on this flight. Like, I need to take notes. I need to take action, and I don't have anything with me to do so. And I said, fuck it. And I started dog-earing all the pages in this book.
Wait a minute. I just dog-eared that one, and now I want to do the opposite side. What do I do?
Yeah. So I'm going through this book, and I'm pulling out my phone and writing in my iNotes, and Catherine's looking at me like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. Really, I'm great. I got these big bug eyes popping out of my head. So anyway, go to New York, spend a couple of days there. On the flight home, I get through, I don't know, I'm like 3/4 of the way through the book by the time we get back to Texas. Spend a couple more days, and there's so much good information in this book that I now have to take action on, that I made myself a promise that I am going to finish reading the book before I take any action. Because knowing me, if I start taking action, I'm going to get so deep into the action that I'm not going to get back to the book.
Right.
Okay, cool. Finish the book. And in there, he just lays out a completely different structure for building a coaching business. And it made me really think, and like, I knew a change was needed. The model that I had implemented in what was in place was a little bit of a hybrid of two different coaching associations or communities that I had been a part of when I started going through this myself. One of them was through a one-to-one coach I'd worked with for a couple of years. And the other one was BFA or Apex, which was the company that I wound up running for 2 years before I left. So I'm like, okay, the marketplace is due for a revamp here. We need a new way to deliver things to the marketplace. People are tired of the same old structure and the hoopla and the bullshit that comes along with the industry. So in reading this book, I'm like just seeing through a different set of lenses. And you know what? A year ago, I wouldn't have been receptive to what was thrown at me inside that book.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree. Even if you've been reading my posts, you notice that they're now all experiential. I no longer tell you should. I was like, this has been my experience. It can be yours too.
Yeah.
It's just, this has been my experience because I drink my own Kool-Aid. So yeah, we will talk after this because I've got some exciting things to share with you too.
Good. Yeah. So that was a big spark. And I'm like elbow deep right now into the back end build out of a lot of what this new structure is going to be. But we've got new offers. We've got and look, I don't know if it's the communities that I'm involved in. I don't know if it's the marketplace, the economy, whatever the case is, but I am not closing $10, $15, $20,000 sales like I was a year or 2 years ago. I'm just not. So I've revamped some things. I've got some lower ticket offers. I've got some different ways to come in and work with me more in a group setting than one-to-one. But I still have a la carte, these are new. These are a la carte one-on-one 90 to 120 minute sessions. So people can call and book me. So there's a couple of things that I've got a ton of experience with that I help people with on a regular basis. Number one, getting clear on your core values and implementing it into your company like ASAP and quickly, right? Cut the fluff, cut the bullshit. Let's get to work now and get them done. Hiring and onboarding is a big topic that I've done a ton on. Like, I've done a ton of hiring in my day. I've done a ton of onboarding. I've implemented it for a lot of different companies, including my own. and I coach people on a regular basis now. Like I know it like the back of my hand. I know my process works. So if someone wants to work with me and just get help on hiring, rather than commit to a 6-month or a 12-month package with my traditional coaching, they can hire me for that 2-hour call where we dive in deep and we build out the process in real time. So I'm trying to do a lot of things that are a bit different than that to give actual real world results rather than just lip service and a little bit of high-fiving at the end of the day.
Yes, and the program that I'm revamping too because of what I've gone through in the past year, and mine is no longer lip service but actual experiential, and transformation happens immediately in the session. Not a breakthrough, transformation. There's a difference. Yeah. It's time for a change, and people, you're right, people are tired of the same old. I know. I don't even look at ads anymore. And I don't even, any email that comes to me, you tell your friends and family that are sending me emails, I just delete them. And if you're talking to me, it's not meant to be a mass email. I'm not going to read it because everything you send me is an ad. So I'm deleting it and done. And that's dear friends. It's like, hope you're not telling me something I need to know, because you usually don't. Delete, right? People are tired of it. They want the real thing. They want the real thing. So you've gone through a lot. You're coming out of it. You're not out of it yet. But you're floating to the top, and you have real change going on in your life and in your business. So if people want to know more, how would they do that?
Easiest way, head over to connectwiththomas.com. That's a single page they can go to. It's got links to all my websites, all of the places they can book a call with me, get on the calendar. They can check out my podcast. They can find all right there in one spot. Connectwiththomas.com, and just know that it's actually Tomas, so it's Tomas. There's no H in Thomas.
That's right, Tomas. Thank you, everybody. This is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process Podcast. If this really interested you, give us a thumbs up if you liked it. If you have a question, put it in the comment. We'll be happy to get back to you. If you know someone who could benefit from this, absolutely share it out. And always subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process Podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.